Hi, I'm Frank and welcome to my podcast, The Ride of a Lifetime. On this podcast, I share my personal journey through the ups and downs of building successful businesses. Each episode, I dive into the different aspects of my life, from overcoming business challenges, starting a family, and designing my own cutting-edge carbon fiber e-bike. I hope this podcast can inspire and motivate listeners to take the leap and chase their dreams. Get ready for an exciting journey through the cycles of success with me and some of my friends I have made along the way. On this episode of The Ride of a Lifetime, we talk scams, language, barriers, being chased through the airport, and how lucky I was to sit next to the right person at the right time. Enjoy. So like so many things, nothing really lasts forever. And when I worked at Noldham Biddle, which was really, really good for me because I earned good money and I got really used to that, working from 7 to like 7 or 6, like at least 10, 12-hour days. And then suddenly things changed. And I don't know whatever happened, but they had less boats sailing into Nelson to be repaired, to be modified, whatever. So basically we started at 7 and we had to knock off at 3:30 because there wasn't just enough work. Some people loved it. I didn't. I just thought, wow, like being home at 3:30, they loved it. But I thought, what do I do now? Be home at 3:30. Yes, I could have spent more time with the family, which sometimes I did, of course, but ultimately I was like really, it was very weird to be home at 3:30 and not being productive. Anyway, so I had to come, and the cash flow was different too, of course. So I thought, what do I do next? And so I always in the back of my mind, I always thought it would be nice to have your own business. Like so many people, they think about it, but they never do it. And they never do it for all sort of reasons, because starting a business is risky. It has an effect on your cash flow because the business costs you money before it makes you money, if it makes you money. And 80% of all startups fail. So the odds aren't really in your favor if you're thinking about starting a business. But that idea crossed my mind. Why don't I start my own business? So I've been sitting at home because I had time, obviously, being home at 3:30, and thinking, okay, now if I want to start a business, what business would I do? And being a Nelson, of course, plenty of sun. So Nelson, sun, solar, why not? But I didn't really know a lot about solar. How would I? I'm an engineer, so I thought, okay, it would be really, really nice to start a business with solar because potential is there. And I went for it. And we knew a person who had like a franchise for sale. And I thought, oh, good. Franchise means, everything is in place and you just sit in the driver's seat. Good that you had to spend upfront quite a lot of money, a six-figure sum, which I thought, God, it's a lot of money, but everything is made. You just sit there and start selling. So I thought, okay, that would be good. But I didn't, of course, I had no savings, not at that stage, not that much. So I went to my bank man and I said, hey, I want to buy a franchise. And he says, oh, yeah. And I said, it cost me X amount. And he says, Frank, to be sorry, but I don't give you the money. And I thought, why is that, mate? And he says, you have no business experience and I would think you may fail and it wouldn't be a good idea. And I said, God, I got a mortgage-free house, so why don't you give me the money against my house? And he says, no, I don't think you're ready for a business yet. So I was pretty upset, to be fair. But hell, it's nothing I could do about it. So I went home and I told my wife, so this idea won't work. But because I studied so much into solar, I thought I didn't want to give up on that dream. You know, if you get a certain way towards your goal, and then suddenly you got a handbrake in front of you, and you think, oh God, what do I do next? Keep going. Just find another way. Just solve the problem you got in front of you. Just remove it. That whatever's in your way, that obstacle, and keep moving. So I sat there and I thought, okay, what do I do next? And a good friend came past and he says, what are you thinking, Frank? What are you doing? And I said, I don't know. And he says, you know, do it yourself, mate. Do it yourself. And I never forget that, because when he said that, I thought I should do it myself, because I was really driven. I was that workaholic guy, and I think if you got those ingredients to start with, you probably have a chance to sort of really look deeper into it. And that's what I did. I jumped on the laptop. It wasn't actually laptop, it was a desktop, like the old style with a big screen, you know. And I had a little mini office I set up next to the fireplace, a little desk. So it was pretty basic looking back. But hey, it worked, you know. I set that up and I typed into my desktop and I put down solar water heating and China. And I had I would say probably thousands of businesses which offered you solar water heating collectors, and it was overwhelming. I was like, God, where do I start? Where do you start if you got so many options? So I had to make a decision how I select the businesses I want to work with. And I thought, okay, let's start with getting samples sent to me by air. I mean, it means that it's here within a couple of weeks, and then I can look, and if it's no good, anyway, at least I keep moving along. So I selected it based on size of the business. So I selected a small business, medium size, and a large one. And at Alibaba, that's what the site I found them, you could see how big a business is really. So I wasn't sure if it's true, but randomly I selected 3. And then I had those collectors coming, very excited, you know, opened the box, looked at them, built them, and none of them were really good, to be fair. But they had potential. It was a starting point for me to work with. So I thought, okay, let's see what those businesses are prepared to do for me if I would start working with them. And so I emailed the little guy, well, based on the numbers, the little company. And I said, hey, thank you very much for sending me that collector. It looked all good, but would you work with me to sort of make it a better collector? I got some ideas. And he says, no, sorry, we too small. We just can't afford to sort of, you know, do it your way. Because I wasn't able to offer big quantities. That's the next thing. I couldn't say, if you work with me tomorrow, order 1,000. I just wasn't able to do that. I started from scratch with nothing, basically. But anyway, what the little guy said, no, sorry, Frank, we can't do that. And I said, that's okay. So I thought, let's try the big company. And they're called Sunrain. So they were really a monster company there. And to approach them with making some changes for me was like, oh yeah, you know, we're so big, we're doing a really good job. And if you don't like our collectors, that's fine, but you have to move on. Okay, done. And then I emailed the mid-size business, and the response I had from them was amazing, because based on what I asked them, they said, yeah, sure thing. You know, if you want to visit us in our factory in China, then look at it. We're always happy to form another partnership and improve our collectors if you have some good ideas. Yeah, sure. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Okay, now we're one step closer to the next goal of actually starting a business. So, very excited. You know, I had to set a date when I come, and of course, I never had any business clothes. I never had a cell phone. I didn't need one. I didn't need business clothes type of things. So really, really excited. Went to Nelsbeck and walked in, and I said, hey, I need a mobile phone. He says, oh, sure, we got plenty. And he said, I need it for China. I was really proud, going to China. And that was 2004. So as 19 years ago, so a long time ago. China was very different then as it is now. Anyway, I told him, here, I need a phone. I go to China, and it has to work in China. And he says, yeah, we got this amazing Hyundai flip phone, tiny little thing. But it worked. I said, does it work in China? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, then. So I took that phone, and then budget-wise, I went to Kmart. I thought, surely I get some black pants and a shirt and some shoes just to sort of dress me up for the occasion. And I don't know, I probably only had to spend $50 or something, and it was all set to go. So value for money, great deal. Okay, done this, booked the plane ticket, and off I went. And it was a really, really quite exciting tour, the first trip to China, I must say, because I imagined arriving in China that when you go through those sliding doors, you see all those people out there, and they have signs up there saying whatever name. So the lady I had contact with in China called Helen. And before I left, I said, Helen, please, big name on that sign, Frank, okay? So when I come, I can see it. Yeah, Mr. Frank, no problem. I said, are you sure? Yes, okay, wonderful. So I left, and I was really looking for that sign, because as I imagined, the sliding doors open, and then you got so many people out there waiting for guests to arrive from all over the world, and I was just one of them. So I carefully walked out and tried to find my sign with Frank on it, and I couldn't see it. And I thought, gosh, maybe I was too excited or whatever. I just couldn't see the sign. And so I got pushed, because I was holding people up, and they pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And so eventually I was around the corner, and I actually never thought about telling them to put my name at the back, because I was sure that I can spot my sign when I come out of the doors. But there was no Frank written at the front or at the back of the sign or nothing. There was just nobody there to pick me up. And I was like, oh my God, like within probably half an hour, everybody was gone, and it was just me at the airport, and not knowing what to do next. But then I thought, oh God, thanks God that guy at Nalspec, gave me that phone. But not as it is now. In those days, there was no global roaming. So when I flipped my Hyundai phone thing, it didn't go to China or anything. I had to sort of actually put things in, and it never crossed my mind to ask him how it goes, because I thought you go there, you turn it on, and both, it goes to the Chinese network, and off she goes. But nah, didn't go. So it was rather frustrating. But anyway, this plan didn't work. So I thought, what do I do now? I started really distressed, to be honest, because I couldn't speak nothing in Chinese. And then I had to find a solution how to get out of that situation now. And I started to regret actually doing that China trip, because I didn't know. I thought I might got scammed or whatever, but then I thought I never got any money out of me, so why would they scam me? So anyway, I had to be creative. I had to become a MacGyver to get out of that situation. And so I walked along, and I thought, what could I do to actually, because I had an idea beforehand to get Helen's phone number, so I got that far that I had a contact I could call, but again, with no phone, you can't get hold of that person. So I walked along, and in those days, I haven't seen it lately on all my trips, but you could book accommodation at the airport, and then they took you to that hotel. So I said in broken English and whatever to that guy, I want to use your phone, please. And somehow he understood what I wanted, but he wasn't really let me have it. So I said, okay, I buy one night accommodation if I can use your phone and make this phone call. And somehow, I don't know how we worked it out, but actually he said, okay. But that phone didn't ring, the mobile phone from Helen. It was kind of a phone which only done landlines or whatever, so it didn't work. So it was another little setback, and then I thought, gosh, I'm not really paying him for a night accommodation if the phone didn't work. So I walked away, and he's behind me chasing me along, and I just kept walking. But ultimately he had to go back to his stand, and I just kept walking and got away out of this one, but I was no further of reaching Helen. And I started to sweat, and I was really not in a good shape because I didn't know what to do. So I sat on that bench seat thing at the airport, and I ran out of ideas. I didn't know what to do. And then there was one, looked like a Chinese lady, which I think it was, sat next to me, and I said to her, I don't know why I even talked to her, but I said, oh, good day, how are you doing? And she says, oh, I'm good, thank you. And I clicked, wow, she speaks English, wonderful. So I said, where are you from? And she says, I'm Chinese, but I study in Wellington, New Zealand. And I thought, oh my God, that's the key. That is what I was waiting for, a solution to my problem. And I said to her, hey, can you please ring this number and see where Helen is? Is she coming? Or she said, oh, no problem. So she rang Helen, and Helen answered, and she says, tell Frank not to go anywhere. We're stuck in traffic and we're coming. Don't tell him not to move. And this was like, oh my God. So she is coming. Everything is good. And I got panicking moods for no reason, because she was on her way. And that was sort of my first experience with China, actually. Looking back now, very funny. At the time, not so funny at all. But hey, I made it. Helen came, and we made it to the factory. So we drove to the factory. It was about 3 hours by car. And we chatted, and I was Helen's first international customer, which was so good considering 19 years later, she's working for me now as my manager. So it's a really, really cool story how we became not only business friends, we became friends. And one of my trips, because I did so many afterwards, was around when she gave birth to her first kid. I was around when she gave birth to her second kid. I met her parents. We bonded. It's not only with Helen, with a lot of those people I met along the way. We just formed really close bonds. And I'm really proud of that, to actually manage to sort of get the trust from those people, because they are good people, you know. And we had a great time now, looking back. But at that time, I was a first international customer, and that was amazing. So she said, oh, now we go to the factory. And I said, oh, wonderful. And then you can meet Mr. Wu. And Mr. Wu was the owner. So I was really looking forward to that. And we went to the factory, and that was just really, really cool to see how those water heating collectors get all manufactured. And that they really gave me a good rundown how everything works, what they're gonna do to this and do that. Because I only seen it on YouTube as such, but I never really been in a factory, and that was really, really amazing. And what I liked as well is that they were so open-minded. So they welcomed me into the factory, and again, sometimes you get that you feel welcomed. And they don't just want your money, they're actually very interested to work with you. And that's what we did. We created a collector together where I told them what I would like to change, and because I was actively actually working on a roof. So every change I made, I then had to put it into practice. And I think this was really good for me, because my aim was to sell my collector nationwide, which I did. But it had to be a real good one. It had to be a collector where a plumber was looking for to I sold another one for Frank, or Frank got me that job to install that collector, and I like installing them. They're really, really good. And this was where I wanted to get to. Design something which is really awesome, which people like to work with. And that took quite some time, to be honest. But so I told them my ideas, and they listened. And because they were a medium-sized businesses, probably, I don't know, 60, 70 or 80, because they had shift work, so I never counted them all, but wasn't a massive company, so it meant they could implement changes I wanted to get done. And that's what we did. So I didn't want to really do too much at once, because I didn't know how it impacts the collector. So I did one thing at a time. And by doing this, I could see, okay, that was good, that was not so good. And we kept really over a couple of years, we kept improving it, and we ended actually up having a collector which in the days got modeled and tested by ECA, the government company or government authority, and they modeled every solar collector in New Zealand, and they gave it a rating. And that rating then was in conjunction with the government funding. It was $1,000, and then it went down to $500. But you had to have a certain grade of efficiency, and we were very fortunate through all that work we put in that we had the highest efficient solar collector in New Zealand. That was fantastic. And of course, Mr. Wu liked it as well, because every idea I had, they just included it in their design and used it for all their collectors as well. So we basically worked very closely on improving it, and we worked so good together that over time he says, "Hey Frank, now you want to work for me as well?" And I thought, how do I get that all done, working in New Zealand, running my business? But he says, I need a global sales and marketing director, and would you like to help my team? And of course, excited to actually get that offer. I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. I mean, I try my best. And so what I did, basically, I worked with a sales team, and on the way they present themselves in front of a customer. So at the beginning, you can't, they thought to come across and do a proposal or an email and say, "Good day, mate." And I said, you can't say "good day, mate" to somebody you don't even know. So it was hilarious. They thought it's really funny, but maybe for some customers it was funny, but equally the same amount of customers thought that's a bit rude. So we worked on this. I just had a blast, because he was such a good man of giving me an opportunity to sort of learn more about other things than running a business in New Zealand. It got that far that he asked me if I could start up a business for him in Australia. I done trade shows for him in Munich, 3 in a row, and we bonded really, really well. And I think what I learned then was always find the best in people, and then in return you never know where it leads to. And this led into a friendship which is still remaining now strongly, because Mr. Wu retired now. He moved to Australia, so he built a house in Australia, because the business I set up for him was the stepping stone for him to get immigration in Australia. So that basically that he could stay in Australia, and he had to invest so much money, and by me sort of starting a business with him in Australia, he could prove that he was employing people. So it all worked really, really well. What I set up for him with him meant he could stay in Australia. He got his, I don't know, he probably got permanent citizenship now, I would imagine, a long time ago. But this was really cool. And then going to Germany, "Frank, you want to go to Germany?" I said, "Oh yeah, for sure." So business class tickets from Nelson to Munich, and then I could see mum and dad. So I got a lot out of it from a business point of learning things, and then seeing the family. And he was happy that on on the trade stand we had in Munich. It was perfect for him to have a German guy there who could speak the language, who could really make those German or any customer welcome in a European way. So when I look back on how it all started and the experience Mr. Wu gave me in the very early days, it was incredible. It was really, really good. And the opportunities, like the drive of being successful, I used every opportunity to actually take my solar collector to a next level, and he was always there to help. Like one day I did, he says, Frank, you want to come? There's in Shanghai, there's a solar water heating expo, you want to come along? And I said, sure thing. So again, he paid for my ticket, which was so amazing. He paid for the tickets all the time for me to go to China. So he did. And I was on the stand with Mr. Wu there. And a guy from Rinnai came. And he says, we're looking at implementing a solar water heating, like a tube collector, vacuum tube, because they only had flat plate collectors. And we want to find one to add to our collection of what we already got. And oh God, I thought that would be cool. And he liked what we designed. The new system, new collector looked really, really awesome, performed really, really well. So I was just really up and go, and I was really, sold the hell out of it. And it narrowed it down to 3 or 4 collectors, and then it narrowed down to 2. And so when the big boss of Rinnai announced to Mr. Wu he's coming to inspect the factory, to make sure the factory is up to scratch, that if we would be selected to be the company for Rinnai to use our collectors in Australia and New Zealand, which would have been massive sales, he wanted to inspect that everything is good. So Mr. Wu said he rang me on a Monday, and he says, Franke. He never said Frank. Franke, always Franke. If I can come to China. I said, when? Wednesday. And it was Monday. He said, the big boss of Rinnai is coming. I want you to be here. Oh my God. So I booked straight a flight. You could get express visas. So within 24 hours, you can get one. Cost money, but he paid it. And then up on the plane into China, and really thinking about, like, they had on health and safety was a priority, but not the top priority. So they had no designated walkways in the factory or anything like this. So we quickly, there was like working day and night to make it a presentable factory where hopefully the big boss thought, no, that looks okay, yeah. And it actually worked. We got it to a level where he thought that's pretty cool. So we got selected to the final 2. And then at the end we were that company which got selected. And I even had a contract at home. But then the dollar changed, the exchange rate. And this was like the most devastating thing for me at the time, of being so close to a big deal where I would have clicked the ticket on every collector being sold or being bought from Rinnai. So it would have been fascinating. But again, it didn't happen because the exchange rate, which dropped, was so substantial that it wasn't worth doing anymore. Like, God, I just couldn't believe it. I was really gutted. But hey, that's life. It didn't work. But again, you always learn. Because we didn't fail, we just couldn't control the exchange rate. So anyway, life goes on, and there's always another thing I could have chased, and there was something. Because I was reading lots of business books, and at that time I was reading a lot about Richard Branson and what he did. And he started so many virgin businesses, virgin this and virgin that. And I looked into it, and there was no virgin solar. And I thought, why is there no virgin solar? So I kept researching, and I thought, well, maybe I should give that a go. And I was very, very lucky that I knew a guy who, before he came to New Zealand, an English guy, he worked for Branson in one of his businesses. He never met him, but he knew where I had to send something to get hold of them. So that's what I did. He gave me a lot of tips, and I'm very thankful for what he done, because he guided me through that procedure of how to contact them. So I had special paper made with a watermark of my brand. Like, I really went like out of my way. I think it was $36 to deliver a letter to the UK. But at the end of the day, I thought, you know, if we get it, it was worth every cent. If we don't get it, it's another thing under being there, didn't happen, but learned something from it. So anyway, I did a proposal and I put numbers towards it, and I sent it, and that called the Green Fund, and sent it off, and I didn't hear anything forever, and I thought, oh God. But then I got that letter and saying, hello, Mr. Witowski, thank you very much for approaching Virgin, but at this stage solar is not on our list of things we want to do, but if we ever do something, we will be in contact. But they never did anything. So another thing we tried didn't work. But again, you know, if you don't try, you never get there. But Mr. Wu again was full on my side. If we had to scale up, if whatever we needed to do, if it would have happened, he would have done whatever it takes. So I had his full backing. So that was another thing we did with Mr. Wu. And so yeah, the experience I had with the Chinese was really amazing. And I think because I don't make a difference if somebody is the boss or somebody is working on the shop floor or is even a cleaner. It's a person, and every person deserves respect. That's why when I'm there, a lot of people say, hey Frank, whatever, because I normally done 3 or 4 trips a year to China, and then getting to know those people, and they've been so friendly that with some of the sales staff down the track, which some of them chase the dollar as you would, you know, you don't get paid massive amounts, and if there's an opportunity to get $1 more somewhere else, they jump the boat and went somewhere else. But what I did, I stayed in touch with them. So even when they left the water heating business and entered into another venture, we stayed in touch. And then again, that led to a lot of cool other little things I done in China because of just being nice to people and give them the respect they deserve. And so what happened, another call, another email came, and we talked a lot on WhatsApp and WeChat, you know, especially WeChat. And one of the sales guys says, hey Frank, I'm working at that new business and be doing electric office desks. You want to help? And I said, well, how do you want me to help? He wants to sort of start selling them in New Zealand, Australia, and you know people, and he asked if you would help him. And I said, yeah, sure, but you know, I don't do it remotely. I want to meet the guy. I want to see what he's doing. I want to see the product. And if I like the product, then I'm happy to promote that. So is he happy to buy me a business class ticket to fly to China? And then we look at it. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, I come. So I went to China again, and I looked at those electric office desks, and that was a really trendy thing at the time, and that goes back 2009, 2010, and I actually never seen one of those, but I could see the potential. I could see that they're ergonomic tables. You stand up, you sit down, you just be a lot more active. And so I said yes, but I could see some some things weren't really, really good. So again, I try to sort of say, well, if it would be me, I would do this. And like Mr. Wu, they saying that a bit of input from an outsider looking in from a different angle would help. So we created some amazing office desks, and I was able then, because I felt happy, I felt good about the desks, I was really fortunate to find a buyer in New Zealand which had 4 businesses in Australia and 1 in New Zealand. And I did a business presentation to him, and I showed him the desks, and he bought them. He bought lots of them, thousands of them. And that was just, again, another teamwork effort between the Chinese and me, of thinking about what could we do together. And I had a commission on every table which got sold, and it was fantastic. It was a win-win situation, and that's, I think, what everybody should aim for if you do business together, to create win-win situations, because based on that you keep making more and more things happen with those people, because the trust is there. If you create a win-win situation with trust, you can do amazing things, and that's what we did. You know, we done the office desk, we done this, we done lots of little things together. And even the Australia one, you know, when Mr. Wu said, Franka, we need a business in Australia, and we need a special collector. And Australia is really, really hot at times, depending where you go. But so we had to design a collector which was suitable for extreme hot conditions. And because a solar water heating collector, like the tubes, is when your hot water cylinder is hot, the pump will stop, and the collector sits on your roof and gets mega hot, like really, really hot, hundreds of degrees hot, and it would destroy the collector over time. So we had to come up with a very smart way to design a collector for Australia. So we sat down and we looked at all the things we needed to consider, and the overheating was certainly top priority. So we designed a box with safety glass on top of it, the tubes underneath it, and a curtain inside. And the curtain was driven by a temperature sensor. So when the tank reached X, the curtain came down and really covered the whole collector. Freaking amazing design, and it worked really, really well. So when we had that design ready, Mr. Wu said, you want to do a little Australia trip? And I said, what do you want me to do? He said, find buyers. And I said, okay. He said, make a plan. I said, all right. So I contacted all sort of different businesses in Queensland, Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, and in Perth. And I went to Melbourne, where our base was. That was HQ. And then I had a flight booked to Sydney, from Sydney to Perth, from Perth to Brisbane, and from Brisbane back to Melbourne. And I spent, I think, a week and a half in every place I went to. And I had a rental car, and I just went around and traveled and visited companies. And I really enjoyed that he gave me that opportunity to actually do something really weird, really crazy, of just traveling Australia with a little. I had a mini collector made, which is like a dwarf of a real one, but it was fully functional. So I could do a presentation to bike shops there and then with my little mini collector, and they got the idea for it. So it was amazing again, because I got customers, which made his business go, and everybody won. I had a hell of an experience traveling around in Australia by myself. I must say that was kind of a little boring, by myself in the car, because the distance from one place to the other sometimes were hours in the car, and that was kind of by yourself. You know, it would have been nice to have somebody with me in the car where I say, okay, I have to go there now. How do I get there? Because even the nav man I had an old map in it. So I don't think didn't have the phone with Google Maps. Maybe it wasn't available then. I don't know, but I wish I would have had it, because there was, I tell you, a lot of swearing going on when I didn't find a way, and it was a tunnel which wasn't on the nav man. So it was really frustrating at times. But looking back, it was great. It was great doing those things. And so, if somebody really is inclined to actually have a Chinese experience, if you find the right people, you got a lot of fun. And I was really lucky to find those people, the right people, to have such amount of fun and being productive and getting each other ahead in business by enjoying each other's company. So yes, my experience with China was amazing. It's still amazing, but I'm still working there now. But this was sort of the start of me getting into it and enjoying the time. And I'm still going. In the COVID time, I couldn't go, but I just been back the first time in 3 years, and it was great to see all my friends again. And yes, China is cool if you want to do business there. Great people. Thank you so much for watching my podcast. I hope some of you out there are inspired and motivated by it. Remember, anybody can do what I have done. It just takes courage, determination, and a bit of luck, which we all have. Now, go out there, enjoy the ride of your lifetime.